Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Danny Grasso. This is the first in my series of video logs where I'd like to show you some of the great stuff that's coming out of Microsoft. I hope it's going to be interesting and of value to you. I'm going to try and keep these short, pack the information in. I'm not going to be able to go to the depth that sometimes I'd like, but hopefully enough to get you started, get you interested in some of the great new technologies that are coming. So today what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the Windows Admin Center. So this is a great free tool that Microsoft released in 2018 to manage your Windows environment. So the whole point here is that you've got a management point or a way to manage your environments without having to RDP to servers. So let's head on over and have a look at the Windows Admin Center. So what you're seeing in front of you is the Admin Center landing page. So when you log into the Windows Admin Center, you can just go ahead and click on add here and add a server that you want to manage. So it's not limited to Windows Server 2019. I can do Server 2016, 2012 R2. I believe I can also do 2008 R2, although I don't have any here in my list today. And you can see I've got a mix here of physical servers. I've got a couple of hyper-converged clusters. They're all virtualized, and some virtual machines as well. So if I want to go and manage a computer, all I do is go ahead and click on that computer, as long as I've got the permissions to do so, of course. And in that list, once that starts up, in the overview page, I can see some really useful information about managing my server. Now, while we're waiting for that, if you're wondering about my background, it's blurred through Microsoft Teams. I've got a very bland kind of yellow background here. I don't know if I should refer to this as the yellow submarine. Maybe I'll get a decent background. Occasionally, you'll probably see the TARDIS drop in and out of focus there as the Teams blurring kicks into effect. Okay, so we've got the overview there in front of us of the Windows Admin Center, and there's some really useful information here that's kind of like the Windows Task Manager. So you get some real-time information from your servers about what's happening with CPU, memory, your network, and with disk. I've also got some useful hardware information here as well that I can look into. I can also restart, shut down. I can even modify the computer ID. So join the computer to a domain, drop it from the domain, join to a work group, things like that. So really, really useful information to get an overview of the status of the server and how it's traveling. One of the other things that you often do on a server through an RDP session is you go and have a look at the Windows event log. So through the admin center, we can also view the event logs. This is a full set of the event logs. The basic ones will load pretty quick, and then you'll get the additional applications and services logs that are available for that server. They'll show up in a second. One of the things I love about this is the filtering capability. So I can go ahead and I can do a search, I should say first before I hit the filtering. I can do a search on any of that information that's in the screen in front of me there. I can also use the filtering option. So I can go ahead and do basically all of the filtering that I would normally be able to do in the event log on a Windows server. So I can go and search for, say, event log 6006, which I think is a server reboot, but I'm in the cloud backup log, so that's probably not going to show much there. Probably the system log would have been a better place to show that. You can see that filters there that I've got my 6006 errors. So I can do the same things. I can export that I can export the event log, and I can clear my logs, all of those types of things. So one of the other useful areas that I find is the files area. So this gives me the capability to browse the file system on the file server without having to connect to a file share directly. If I don't have file shares enabled through the firewall, I can go ahead and I can modify files, folders, create files, upload and download files. I can go ahead and do some, zip extracting, delete stuff as well. So you got some basic file functionality there as well. So one of the other areas that I find really useful is the firewall rules section. And what I love about this is that I get all of the functionality that I normally would from the Windows Advanced Firewall console on a server. The incoming rules component is really similar. You can see I've already got a search filter there. So I can go ahead, choose a rule that may not be enabled. I can go ahead and enable that rule. I get a little status telling me that it's started to enable that firewall rule, and yes, it successfully enabled the firewall rule. And you can see the status change here. So I can go ahead, enable, disable firewall rules, delete firewall rules, and create firewall rules with all of those same capabilities that I normally would with the firewall management console. So this one is really powerful. It's really rich. Microsoft have done a good job. And this saves me a lot of time if I just need to go ahead and enable some firewall rules on a server. One of the other ones I like is the backup status. This works in with the Microsoft Azure backup component. So you can, I'm not sure if you're aware, you can back up server information directly to Azure. So what this does is it gives us a summary of the information about our backup jobs. So in this case, I've got 7 jobs, 2 in a warning state, 8 recovery points in total. I can go and have a look. It's the C drive on my server. I could kick off a backup now if I wanted to. And I can go and look at some information about the jobs and the recovery points that I have. So if I want to see, okay, this job completed with warnings, and I can go and investigate that a little bit further. I transferred 189 meg of data. Um, so this is useful without having to go onto the server, launch the Azure Backup Management Console. I can just view this directly from the Windows Admin Center. So the insight forecasting, this is one that I love. Unfortunately, System Insights is only available in Windows Server 2019, and that's why I've taken you to a Windows Server 2019 server through the Windows Admin Center. So the idea here with System Insights, without going into too much depth, is to give us an idea of what's happening with our server. So what we expect from a usage pattern to be when we run out of that particular resource. So my disk usage here is fairly flat, so that's not very good in terms of showing you what it can do. But the idea here is being that you get an idea of your current trending, and then at a point in time, future forecasting, am I going to run out of resources? As you can see in my test environment, my CPU is fairly flat on this virtual machine. I'm not going to run out of resources anytime soon. But this is a great feature in identifying, particularly in this case, my CPU, my network, and my storage and volume consumption to give me an idea of when, based on a history of trending, when the system thinks that I'm going to run out of resources. So that's really handy, and one that I love through the Windows Admin Center that you're not going to see on a Windows server anywhere in any management console there. You can also go ahead and do some network management here. This one is a little bit basic. I think this needs some work, but you can do the basic things in the network area here, like modifying IP addresses of the server, modifying your network adapters, network adapter information. So you can see basic information about the machine, DNS servers that has set the IP address, whether it's got IPv6 enabled, all of those types of things. And in my settings, as I said, this is a little bit limited, but at least I can go ahead and set my IPv4 and IPv6 settings. Don't get the network configuration options that I would if I was on the server though. In a network environment, you might not do that too often, but it's certainly something that would be great for Microsoft to introduce in the future. One of the things I love is the PowerShell, not the processors, we'll get to that in a sec, the PowerShell option. So what this does is this just hooks straight into PowerShell on the remote computer that I'm connecting to. Of course, it wants a password. And hey presto, if you've ever used enter-ps session, then this is basically what this is, but within my Windows Admin Center. So I don't need to jump out to an external prompt. It's automatically use the credentials, or the username, I should say, of the user that I'm logged into the Windows Admin Center as. And then I just enter my credentials and I'm on that server. So if we have a look, this is going to be HOTST 2019-03V, and my machine here, which I probably should have shown you towards the start. Is my test Windows 10 computer. So I can do everything that I would normally do in PowerShell. There's no point in me going through any of that detailed information there. If you use PowerShell, great feature of being able to directly access PowerShell for that server. Processes is what I wanted to hit next. So this is handy if you've gone to the processes tab in the task manager of seeing all of your running processes and who's running those processes. So if you want to stop a process or end a process that's misbehaving, do some of the other process dump, find handles, start a process that might have stopped. So these are the things that you can do through the processes function. So moving on to the registry. So this is an area that I think is great, remote registry management. So if you need to go ahead and modify the registry on a computer rather than remotely connecting in, you can go ahead and simply edit the registry here. So I can go ahead. One of the things I love is that I can import a registry file. So if I've got a .reg on my machine that's been pre-created, I can go ahead and just import that straight into that remote server without having to log on to that server using an RDP session. So the basically I can also do some export, create new keys, rename, delete keys, all of those basic registry functions that you'd like to do. The only thing that I think is missing here is my search feature. It's on almost every other part of the Windows Admin Center except the registry. Hoping Microsoft will introduce that. That might be me going and adding a feature request. Hopefully we'll see that soon as well. Services is one that I think will probably get the most use in the Windows Admin Center. A lot of times, if we want to modify the properties of a service, let's have a look and see if we can see the Azure Backup Service. Is that running right now? The Recovery Services Agent is running. So I can go ahead and I can stop and start that service. I can pause the service if I want. I also get those same rich service features if I want to do some management, change the logon account, the recovery behavior for that service. I can go ahead and do all of that here as well. So some very useful stuff there. So in this storage section, the next bit I want to show you is the capability to modify storage within this server. So I can go ahead and get some disk information. Let's just move that up a bit so you can see a bit more of that. So you can see the partitions or the volumes that I've got on each of those the disks in the server, and have a look at the properties of that. LUN information, which is pretty useful. I can then go into the volumes and not just view the volume properties, but I've also got the capability to edit some of those volume properties, get my quota management happening. And one that I like here is resize my volume. So in this case, I think there's volumes using 15 gig, but the maximum size is 126 gig. So I don't want to increase this. I want to decrease this volume. So let's go ahead and resize that. Maybe I'll give it more than a couple of gig overhead. Okay, let's say 30, but really 126 gig for the server? Nah, I don't need that. So some really useful management functionality there. There we go. So the resize volume has succeeded. That was nice and quick. I'm now consuming 30 gig with 15 gig of free space. So the capability without even remotely managing or remotely connecting to that server, I should say via RDP, I've been able to go ahead and do something that I would consider a little bit more complex than your average stuff. I've also got the capability to do some file share configuration. So I can go ahead and create some shares on the server and add some permissions to that. So some basic functionality there around sharing if I need to set up some shares. One of the other things I find useful, and probably the last thing I'll cover off today, is installed apps. This is kind of useful. People, unless you have some monitoring software that's capturing this information, or if you want to see a particular version of an app you've got on a server, if you're doing some troubleshooting, this is really handy. You've got the capability here to remove applications. Use this one with caution. If you've got an application that's going to sit there and wait for an authentication prompt, or wait for a prompt to uninstall, or finish the uninstall, or has some additional parameters it needs to uninstall, that may just sit there and hang. I've hit that. Maybe that behavior will change. Great for information at the moment. Just be careful when you're using the remove feature. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you around the Windows Admin Center. Hopefully you've found that useful. So hopefully that's been of value to you. I really think there's a lot more value in the Windows Admin Center to come. I've seen some tweets about some more exciting new things that are coming our way, some new advancements in the Windows Admin Center. The one thing I didn't show you, and probably even though I said I wouldn't, let's go and have a quick look here, are the extensions. So it's not just Microsoft that's driving the Windows Admin Center interest and development. You can see that there are a bunch of other third parties that are providing plugins already to the Windows Admin Center. So some of those from a hardware point of view, some from a software point of view. But certainly this is exciting that having the capability to see those hardware features. And if you are at Ignite or at Ignite the Tour, you might have seen some of those plugins for the Windows Admin Center, and they look really great. Some of those are going to be fantastic for managing an environment where you have those systems. So I hope this has been of value to you. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll talk to you again soon.